Over a year ago, I made my first ever NASCAR video. Kyle Larson, NASCAR's greatest comeback story. I made that following Larson's big championship after his controversial removal from the sport the year prior. In the comments, somebody stated that my next video should be titled, Kyle Busch, NASCAR's biggest disappointment. To which I replied with an enthusiastic, yes. However, the year is 2023. By the time this video comes out, the season will be drawing to a close. As I'm writing this, it's currently off week right before the Ally 400 at Nashville, and Kyle Busch is now driving for Richard Childress, and is arguably doing better than ever. A real comeback after what was a bust of a 2022. What I'm saying is, a few years ago, I would be roasting the ever-living heck out of Kyle had this video been made then, but my views have changed. I kinda respect him and what he's done in the sport. I do not hate Kyle Busch like I used to, even with his controversies and such. Now, does that mean I'm a Kyle Busch fan? No. Let me clear the waters. I do not have a favorite driver. I do have favorite drivers, but I do not root for just one or two guys. I am a fan of the sport, NASCAR. I am interested in anything and every storyline connected to it. Past and present, every driver, even the ones I don't like. Every one of them are different after all. I am looking at this subject as a NASCAR fan, and I know there will be Busch lovers and Busch haters watching this, so don't worry. Don't go in the comments and shout your opinions just yet because we're going to get into all of it in this video. Call me biased, call me a hater, just know I'm neither. Anyways, with that being said, here is the final chapter of the Joe Gibbs Racing number 18 car. A story of the driver who would take the car to new heights. Allow me to introduce you to Rowdy, the Candyman, Kyle Busch. Born and raised in the suburbs of Las Vegas, Nevada, Kyle Busch, much like another past 18 driver, was following in his brother's footsteps, Kurt Busch. He spent his childhood driving go-karts and working in his dad's garage, learning how to work on and tune cars, and how to make chassis and suspension adjustments to make them go around tracks better. By the young age of 10, he was his brother's crew chief while he was racing dwarf cars. Yes, that's what they're called. By 13, Kyle would start his racing career, winning over 60 races and 2 track championships at the Las Vegas Bull Ring. 3 years later, he'd make his official start in NASCAR, driving in the Craftsman Truck Series for Roush Racing, making a total of 6 starts for the 2001 season. He would finish in the top 10 twice. It wouldn't be until 2003 that he'd return to NASCAR. This time though, he'd rise another rank into the Busch Series, running a part-time schedule in the 87 Chevy. He'd garner a couple top 5s and a handful of top 10s, catching the eye of Rick Hendrick, who would later tap him to ride full-time in the number 5 Busch Series car in 2004. That year, he lit up the charts with 5 wins and dang near won the championship. He'd go home with the Rookie of the Year prize. That same year, his brother Kurt won the inaugural Nextel Cup in the series' first iteration of the playoff format. Hendrick, seeing an opportunity to have his own Kurt, very quickly moved Kyle up to the Cup Series for 2005, replacing Terry Labonte, who stated his retirement from full-time racing at the end of the season. Terry was moved to his old number 44 to celebrate his career, while the fresh Kyle Busch hopped in the Hendrick number 5. Despite his fast rise to the Cup Series, which usually leads to disappointment, Kyle Busch did good. Like, really, really good. He nabbed 2 wins, 9 top 5s, and 13 top 10s, nearly tying Tony Stewart for most wins in a rookie season. And like his first full-time year in the Busch Series, he would be crowned Rookie of the Year. Kyle would come back the following year with one less win, but would actually make it to the chase for the Cup this time, finishing 10th in the points. Everything seemed great. He's a young upstart who's already proven himself competitive. He's with literally the most powerful team in NASCAR and in their flagship car. What could go wrong? Oh, right. Hey, remember in part 3 when I said Dale Jr. was going to Hendrick Motorsports at the end of the 2007 season while Kyle Busch gets the boot? Well, this frustrated Kyle Busch, and to add fuel to the fire, Jr. did this.
Kyle Busch, one of the chase contenders, has had back-to-back top 5 finishes, and he is head on to the wall here. Hearing there may have been some contact on the racetrack. Let's see what happened. Did he have some contact from behind?
Oh, looks like Junior really got into the back of him hard.
You know, this is the difference between this car and the car tomorrow. The car tomorrow, the bumpers lined up perfect, and it looks like Junior just gave just a little tap coming down the straightaway to kind of help take his speed up, and it lifted the back of his car up, and he just flat lost control of it.
That looked like it came out of nowhere. What happened out there with Junior?
I don't know. You'd have to ask him. I just gave him a lane to try to let him go on the outside because I knew he was going to have a run off the corner, and I got run in the back of and spun out down the back straightaway for absolutely no reason, and it was, you know, a pretty stupid move on his part. And obviously, I'm sure these guys that he's going to be working with next year don't really appreciate this because they've got a championship they can win this year, and he doesn't.
Yeah, to say Kyle Busch was mad would be an understatement, and this anger would only grow inside of him, until it finally boiled over and came to a head, in an event that would cost Junior a win and Kyle his reputation with the fans. But I'll save that for later. Fast forward to 2008, and now Kyle Busch is at Joe Gibbs Racing in the 18 car, and with it, he brings a brand new sponsor to the team, Mars. Owners of famous brands like Skittles, Snickers, Milky Way, Twix, Pedigree, and the one you all know him for, M&M's. That same year, JGR left the Bowtie Brigade to join the growing fleet of those cheating Yodas. A controversial decision at first, but one that would ultimately lead the team to massive success. Especially for Kyle, because that year, he'd go on to win 8 races? Wait. 8 wins, 17 top 5s, 21 top 10s, 2 poles, and led 1,600 laps? Dude, nice. That's more than Jimmy Johnson got, the guy that won the championship that year. Man, I'm sure he must have been a big hit with the fans being a young guy.
Oh, man, that was tight off turn 2. He's got him. I believe he's got him this time. Oh, he turned it. No. Oh, he turned it. No.
These words, to this day, they still haunt Dale Jr. fans nationwide. Some might even say it keeps them up at night. In a last-ditch effort to try to pass Jr. for the lead at Richmond, Kyle Busch hooked Dale's '88 Chevy, sending him into the wall. An act of desperation, but mainly an act of retaliation from the year prior. Suddenly, Kyle Busch was public enemy number 1 for the entire world of NASCAR, a title that he hasn't shaken off to this day. He had just punted the driver with the biggest fan base in NASCAR, and to this very day, the boos still echo in every racetrack he walks into. But Kyle didn't seem to care. After all, it was Junior that started it. And so, Kyle ended it. Or so he thought.
There's certainly going to be different opinions. Stay low. Keep digging there.
So, I think I've talked enough. How about an intermission?
Oh, y'all are so loving. Thank you. Kyle Busch, driver of the number 18 double mid Camry, ready to win it again.
Brad Keselowski, driver of the Penske Racing Dodge. Kyle Busch is an...
Yeah, it looked like Rudman got out of the throttle just a little bit.
Said unsportsmanlike conduct. It's freedom of speech. They're going against the constitutional rights of everybody. Now, stop! Please! You all work too hard for this! it. You're costing us. Bring it to pit road. Park it for 2 laps.
And Nascar Busch to pull the car over and stop on the racetrack.
Get out of the race car, bud.
So the fire crews can go attend to that.
You got to get out of it. You got to get out of it, man. You got to get out of it. Oh, we just got spun by 18.
And Harvick and Busch.
He's after him.
Yeah, this has just started now.
I'm going to have a little talk. And there goes his car.
Both drivers trying to get by. Looked like the 17 of Timothy Peters. They slid up the racetrack, and now Kyle Busch not happy at all.
So good, dude.
And Kyle Busch is going to turn over and bring the wall.
Kyle Busch should be parked for this race and maybe the rest of the season.
Anderson Darinoka with you. What happens when a 65-year-old fights a 26-year-old? Yeah, you might be surprised.
65-year-old Childress confronting and getting into a physical dust-up with the 26-year-old Busch.
He took off his wristwatch, walked up to Busch, got him in the headlock, and went to beating on him. Just went to beating on his head.
I told you, when you come on the bottom like that and you come up the track, you need to hold track. And looked like the 18 of Kyle Busch was about the right rear.
I'm anxious to see why Kyle Busch and that 18 didn't come to pit road, and I think Clint Boyer knew.
Mark here, Kyle. They're calling. Hey, Kyle, stop. Stop. Calling you on that. Just stop.
No, I just wish I could have punched him in the nose instead of the helmet. Harv! Settle down, son. Settle down. But he's not going to get in the punching contest because he's scared of that. So it's you and Kyle Busch, y'all don't like each other, do you? Not really. I mean, and that's not fake. That's not fake. You're not just saying that.
I'm not surprised about anything. Congratulations.
Blood on the forehead there. That did not work out for. Oh, Kyle Busch turns Chase Elliott hard into the wall.
I don't know what y'all are whining about, but if you don't like that kind of racing, don't even watch.
That's it, Kyle. Let's go home. All right, guys, let's get out of here.
Available 268 horsepower, class-leading MPG, and intuitive mobile technology. Introducing the reinvented 2012 Toyota Camry. It's ready. Are you?
Yeah, safe to say fans and drivers alike were tired of Kyle Busch's antics, but there's one glaring thing that you can't deny. This guy can drive. From his first full-time season until now, Kyle has never failed to qualify. And on top of that, he's never had a winless year in the Cup Series since 2005. That is 19 years with at least one win. That is impressive. Most drivers would kill for that kind of consistency. Even the legends of Richard Petty, Dale Earnhardt, and Jeff Gordon had winless seasons. During the years, they were competitive. And hey, if stats don't convince you that Kyle Busch is a top-tier driver, then let me tell you what happened in 2015. Like many drivers, one of Kyle Busch's favorite pastimes is bushwhacking, a term used by fans to describe Cup Series drivers who attend Busch Series races, now called the Xfinity Series. So, Xfinity whacking? No. It's been a controversy in the fan base a while, but I honestly don't see the problem. It's good fun for the driver, and in the process, they're making a little extra cheddar. And I can hear what you're saying. They're stealing championships from lower division drivers. Well, they can't compete for championships if they're racing in the Cup Series full time. Heck, it's basically a driver's version of overtime. Anyways, that year at Daytona, Kyle decided to compete in the Xfinity Series race. You know, might as well. On top of the practice they're already having in the Cup Series, he can get more practice and get paid for it. Nice. However, the infield wall had other plans.
They can't do this for 10 laps.
Eric Jones around. Back across the field. The big one, part 2 at Daytona.
Yeah, they can't do this.
Stay high.
Nice straight.
Anybody hit you there, Kel?
A horrific crash for Kyle Busch, who slid through the infield grass and went head-on into the inside wall. And he is climbing from that car, and that is an unbelievable sight. Wow.
This is pretty much every driver's worst nightmare. You're out of control, your brakes are locked up, you can't steer the car, and you're going straight for a concrete wall with no safer barrier going well over 90 miles per hour. But, thanks to extreme safety enhancements made to the car since Dale Earnhardt's death, Kyle Busch would not suffer the same fate here. He would exit the car breathing, but not on his own two legs. He would be hauled out of Daytona on a stretcher with a compound leg fracture and a broken foot. Thanks to this injury, he missed the 500 as well as the next 10 races in the Cup Series. Now normally this is where the story ends. He might come back and win a couple races but never makes it to the playoffs. He'll get a good pat on the back and a better luck next year. But Kyle Busch isn't normal. Instead of settling for a mediocre season, Kyle pretty much put the entire field on easy mode, coming back from an injury and doing the impossible. 5 wins, the most of any driver that season, as well as 3 in a row. 12 top 5s, 16 top 10s, and an average finish of 10.8. Most importantly though, was his first Cup Series championship.
Down the backstretch. His closest competitor, just a dot in the rearview mirror. Through 3 and 4. No one has battled through as much pain and had as much perseverance as 30-year-old Kyle Busch. Tonight he earns his first Cup title. Kyle Busch, the 2015 NASCAR Sprint Cup champion.
Oh my God! Look at me,
Kyle Busch, out of pure domination and raw talent, missed nearly a third of the year and came back and smoked everybody all the way to the season finale at Homestead and walked away with the Cup Series title. That is just completely unheard of. Nobody's ever done anything like this in NASCAR to my knowledge. Yeah, back in pre-1972, before NASCAR's modern era, you might hear of someone winning a championship after missing a couple races, but keep in mind, they would often run up to 50 races in a season and not everyone would show up. Hardly anyone raced full time back then. Now there's 36 races per year and all the major drivers are competing full time week in and week out. And Kyle missed 11 of them and pulls off this? That's impressive. Of course though, not everyone agreed. After all, Busch admitted to getting a waiver from NASCAR for missing a few races. But even still, when you see the stats of every other driver that season, Kyle Busch was on another level. And the only reason his stats are smaller is because, again, he missed several races. Either way you slice it, I have no doubt he was winning the championship either way.
Tripping, bro. You tripping.
This guy stinks!
Okay, alright, fine. So maybe some might think it was a fluke. After all, he did get a waiver like I previously mentioned.
The only reason he won a championship was because he spoiled and got silver spoon by the sanctioning body.
I guess those are the ones with 88s tattooed on their arm.
Alright, fair enough. But tell me this, how do you explain 2019? After barely losing the championship to Joey Logano the year prior, Kyle Busch returned in 2019 determined more than ever to win a second Cup Series title. 2019 would be an all-out war between Joe Gibbs Racing, Penske, and Stewart-Haas Racing, with a combined total of 29 wins between the 3 teams. That is only 7 races where these 3 teams did not win, and the others just consisted of Hendrick Motorsports and a one-off by Justin Haley. Well, the average consumer might be saying this. Wait, Martin Truex has the most wins. Shouldn't he win the championship? Well, actually, no. Remember in part 2 when I mentioned the NASCAR playoffs? Yep, that comes into play here. For the sake of time, I'll skip all the filler and get right to the meat, because the playoffs could be a whole separate video of their own. In today's format, the last race of the season is the round of 4, meaning after 9 weeks of playoff and elimination races, by the time we reach the season finale, only 4 drivers will be eligible for the championship. And at the end of the race, regardless of how well you did in the rest of the season, how many points you had, wins you had, or how many laps you led, Whoever out of the 4 is in the highest position wins the championship. Yes, it is both very controversial and very entertaining. And yes, you might even say there was Mickey Mouse Championships as a result of this. But thanks to the format, Kyle Busch would win his second Cup Series title.
In the top 10 all-time wins list for NASCAR. 1 lap to go, presented by Credit One Bank. Kyle Busch, he's the winningest driver of the decade, and now he is joining elite company. Kyle Busch is going to win his second Monster Energy NASCAR Cup Series championship.
But obviously this doesn't matter. Kyle used the playoff format to his advantage. Clearly, had this have been the pre-2004 points format, he would have lost to Martin Truex Jr. You really think so? If we strip away any form of playoffs and stage points and run the season as if it was 2003, and we count all of his top 5s, top 10s, laps led, and bonus points he would have gotten, Kyle Busch would have still come out on top of the field. Call Kyle's championships a fluke if you want, but the guy proved in 2019 he more than deserved them. And most importantly, proved he belongs in the seat of the JGR 18 car, like he has many times. Two years removed from his championship, 2021 was much of the same for Kyle Busch. The usual couple of wins, whole lot of top 5s and top 10s, and a top 10 points finish. Everyone's eyes were set on 2022 though, thanks to the introduction of the brand new next-gen car. However, for Busch, all that anticipation would come to a screeching halt. Mars, the company that had been sponsoring him since day one at Joe Gibbs Racing, suddenly announced their departure from NASCAR following the 2022 season. That is a big majority of his sponsorship. That's not just M&M's, that's Skittles, Pedigree, Combo, Snickers, literally every major sponsor Kyle Busch has. Kyle and Joe Gibbs had to make a sponsorship decision quick before the 22 season wrapped up. The only problem being, supposedly, JGR couldn't find one. Yeah, Joe Gibbs Racing could not land a sponsor for arguably the sport's most talented driver. For the first time since 2007, Rowdy, the Candyman, would be without his biggest investor. As for his 2022 season, statistically speaking, it was mediocre for Kyle's standards. He would wrap up the season with only a single win and 7 DNFs. One of those DNFs was the last time we saw the Interstate Batteries number 18 at Texas, where he crashed and finished 36th. The same thing that happened 30 years earlier the first time we saw the Interstate Batteries 18, at Daytona in 1992. Just a few days prior to this, on September 22nd, Kyle Busch would make the biggest decision in his career.
The last few months have been nothing but stressful, I'll admit. And it's been 15 years since I've had to make a decision quite like this, but 15 years ago it was just me. I didn't have a family. I didn't have a wife and a son and a daughter and a race team around me that I had to worry about. It was just what I needed to do. So this process took a lot longer than I expected to. Sure it did, but this is one of the most important decisions of my life, and I definitely couldn't rush through it. I also needed a place where I felt like I could hit reset and I could be welcomed just as I am. This change will allow for a clean slate, and that's big for me and my family. A new team, a new teammate, new teammates, most importantly, a new boss who accepts where I've been and yet can help me get to where I want to be. At the end of the day, one team and one owner emerged as the clear choice. The second I sat down with him, I knew that his company and his people and the culture around there had the ability to compete for championships from day one. So now for the moment you all couldn't wait for, I'm excited to announce that I'll be taking my talents to Welcome, North Carolina to drive the number 8 car for Richard Childress Racing starting in 2023. I'd like to introduce you to my new boss, Richard Childress.
Much like Dale Jr.'s announcement in 2007, this was one of the biggest press conferences in recent NASCAR history. Kyle Busch would be leaving Joe Gibbs to drive the number 8 Chevy for Richard Childress Racing. starting a multi-year contract in 2023. And yes, this is the same Richard Childress who put him in a headlock and punched him in the face several times. Thankfully though, Kyle has changed a lot since his younger days at JGR, and the team is doing great. As for the 18 car, however, after Kyle's self-removal from Joe Gibbs, it would not race in 2023. As of right now, there is no Joe Gibbs Racing 18 car, the first time it's been vacant since JGR's founding. So that begs the big question, and before you ask it, no, of course it's not over. This year, Joe Gibbs' grandson, Ty Gibbs, has joined the Cup Series roster as a rookie, driving the 54 car. There has been no announcement yet, but I have no doubt that Ty Gibbs will soon be driving the flagship 18 car. Like it or not, that's the direction the number is heading. And that's kind of a reason why me and many other fans believe Kyle Busch was pushed out the door. Maybe I'm wrong, but Joe Gibbs had to make a spot for Ty somehow. Regardless whether or not the 18 comes back, it has undoubtedly written itself into the NASCAR history books as one of the most prestigious numbers in the sport. Its life in NASCAR is a story spanning over a quarter of a century, told by 4 different drivers, 3 manufacturers, and 3 championships. Dale Jarrett, the beginning, a journeyman turned Daytona 500 winner, and the genesis of Joe Gibbs Racing's run in NASCAR. Bobby Labonte, the upstart trying to break from his brother Shadow, who would take the number to heights never before imagined. J.J. Yeley, the underdog who got his big break and who, despite not winning, etched his name in NASCAR. Kyle Busch, a driver determined to win who would take the already iconic number to the next level. A man who didn't care what the NASCAR world or its fans thought of him and never lifted for anyone. Despite his controversies and trials, Rowdy lived up to his name and got the job done. These 4 are the drivers that made the number what it is today and shaped the mold that is Joe Gibbs Racing. They are the legacy of the JGR 18 car. Hey everyone, it's me after making this video. If you made it this far and have watched all 4 parts, thank you so much. This is by far my biggest project I've ever done for YouTube, and it took months of research, writing, recording, and editing. But I'm very proud the way it came out. I apologize if some parts come out weird or the audio is a bit jank. Well, that's because I'm still using Windows Movie Maker on an 11-year-old laptop. I do this for you guys. I want to give a big shout out to my subscribers. I know to some that number may be small, but I am extremely proud of it. I never would have thought I'd reach 200. And I just want to say thanks to all of you. I want to give a big shout out to Slap Shoes, who is a big inspiration of mine when it comes to making NASCAR stuff. He did not contribute to this, nor do I think he'll ever see this, but if so, hey, that'd be awesome. Of course, huge shout out to my family and friends who are all subscribed and watch my videos. But I want to give a special shout out to my dad, who, despite not knowing much about NASCAR, despite stuff I've said over the years while growing up, read all of my scripts and all my text messages rambling about research I was doing. He helped a ton, helping me choose music and watching some of my clips I sent. He was also kind of a critic in my writing as well, which helped a lot. And now, to pay appreciation to my father, I will play a sound clip he sent me to embarrass him on the internet. So thanks, Dad. Here's your prize.
A man and his car. The smell of burning rubber. The roaring of an engine. The straight stretch of road with an immediate left turn. Then another. Then another. Then another. What could it be? NASCAR's number 18 coming to a theater near you.